If you click the video away, please tell me what the reason for it was, so that I can improve. Otherwise, hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn history today, food, and after we've done that, we're gonna do shoulder impingement training. And if you participate in the shoulder impingement training, then is that your own risk. What people ate. People learned how to use fire to cook food 1.5 million years ago. The oldest known cooking fire is at QXMTRUYB in South Africa. Okay, 1.5 million years ago, that is a long time ago, the human beings were able to make fire to cook food. And these fireplaces were found at QXMTRUYB, which is in Southern Africa. It is in South Africa, in Southern Africa. The first ovens were pits for hot coals, first used in the Ukraine about 20,000 years ago. The first real ovens were from Sumer and Egypt, 5,000 years ago. Okay, 20,000 years ago there were pits made and there were hot coals, so burning coals put in. And it was 20,000 years ago in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine. Grain seeds were about 5,000 years ago when the Sumer, I don't know where we were, and in Egypt, at the southern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. In Egypt, 5,000 years ago, there were even better ovens made. Grain seeds were cooked and mixed with water to make gruel, which is a type of porridge. Around 20,000 years ago, people learned to bake gruel on a hot stone to make flat bread, like pita. Okay, they had grains, they are growing on fields, they are growing like grass, and one can take the inner part, but not all of it, you have to know what, and then you can take it and you can make gruel porridge out of it, and that is, you can also bake it, and then you have a form of bread. The development of pottery meant that liquids could be heated to make stews. I don't know what stews are. The oldest pottery is 13,000 years old. Pots from Oda Yamamoto in Japan. The first pots from the Near East, from Iran, date back 11,000 years. Okay, pottery, so plates basically, but about, I don't know the name for it. So things. Here's no graphic. And they were made 13,000 years ago in Japan, in Oda Yamamoto, and also in Iran. So Japan, that is, if you have Asia, and then there's China, and then there's Japan, Barren Island, in the Pacific. Or also in the Near East from Iran. So you have Europe, and then Asia, and then Russia, then you have Kazakhstan, Afghanistan, and then Iran. There next to, it wasn't Syria, it was, I forgot it. I think it was Syria, and Iraq, and then Iran. Okay, and we're 11,000 years ago. Romans used to go to cheap eating houses called popinae for their main meals. So I mean Romans, so probably do we mean now center Italy. But that is if you have Europe and there's down Italy. And in the center Rome region do we mean now. So they were going to eating houses, and they were called popinae, and where they were eating. Here they could buy bread, cheese, fruit, and cheap cuts of meat. Only the rich could afford to employ a chef to prepare meals. Okay. They're saying that then around 2,000 years ago, people in center Italy, the Romans, they had no bread, so they had something like that. They had grain, and then they were baking it. And then they had cheese, so out of milk, if you let it stand basically, for a few weeks, and fruits from trees, and also meat. And that could be eaten. Around 12,000 years ago, people found how to make food last by letting it ferment, making cheese from milk and wine from grapes. Okay, so 12,000 years ago, 10,000 years before the Roman Empire was to the greatest extent, 12,000 years ago, the people found out that they, in a specific way, I don't know exactly, were letting milk basically stand for a few days, for a few weeks. They were doing a few things with it. I forgot what it was. And then they were able to make cheese out of milk. And they were also doing grapes. They were taking grapes and taking the watery substance out of the grapes. They're pressing them, and then they're doing also things with them. They're letting them stand for a few weeks or months, and then they have wine, which is which holds them longer because of the alcohol in it. Now, 8,000 before Christ, people began to farm animals such as sheep and grow plants such as cereals for food. Okay. Diets became less varied then when people gathered wild food, but more reliable. Okay, 10,000 years ago, people started to have animals, for example, sheep, and they were then killing these animals and eating the meat of them, and then they had meat. And they were also growing plants, so agriculture, grains, and then they made cereals out of them, so some type of food, I don't really get it. And now at that time, the people were eating less varied food, because they had no reliable food from their sheep on their farm or from their grain of their field, and not from wild animals, but it was also more reliable because the animals were enclosed and the grains were standing there. Farmers in Palestine were growing oil-rich olives to squeeze and make olive oil in huge amounts around 4,000 or 6,000 years ago. Romans consumed it in vast quantities. Okay, if you have the Mediterranean Sea with Italy, and when you have here beside the region of Palestine, near Hamburg here, so the region of Palestine and Egypt here. And so the Romans were here in Italy, and when even 2,000 years before the main Romans, they were here in the region of Palestine, people doing olive oil, and when the Roman Empire was as big, and also in Palestine in the region, when the Romans were consuming olive oil. So olives were made on trees, they're grown on trees, and they have been squeezed, and then you have basically olive oil. Maybe some things are also done with it. And then 4,500 years ago, the Egyptians found that by leaving gruel to ferment, they could make a dough. I don't know what gruel is or ferment, but I think I know what these words mean in English. So they are adding things to the dough when they are baking, and that makes they baked this in ovens to make the first raised bread, and that lets the bread there. I don't want to explain it, I'm not completely able to explain it. That sounds a bit, if I'm not really able to explain it, it doesn't sound good if I explain it. And it makes the bread rise because things in it are breathing. It gets more air in it, and that whole thing gets bigger basically. Honey was the main sweetener, so honey. And there are bees, and these bees, they are flying around the flowers, and when they're taking from these flowers these things, which technically the flowers use to go to other flowers, to get new flowers. And these bees are accumulating them, and they are having them in the beehive, and they let it stand there basically, and somehow it turns into honey. And then humans are going and eating with honey. Honey was the main sweetener. Egyptians kept bees for honey and also made sweet syrups from fruits. Okay, in Egypt again, honey. The oldest receipt book is an Assyrian stone tablet dating from 3,700 years ago. It featured 25 receipts, including a bird called a tauru cooked in onion, garlic, milk, and spices. Okay, Assyria, but is, I don't know exactly. I know. It is the region of Iran. We had it in the previous part, we had here Assyrians, and we had the name of Assyria, that is of the Iranian tribes, Assyrians, and the other one, I forgot. And so that is again the region between Europe and Asia, and then down through Kazakhstan, and then there is Iran, and that is the region of Assyria 3,000-4,000 years ago. And there was a receipt of how a bird with the name tauru, can be prepared to eat it. Bread was the first processed food made by baking ground up grass seeds mixed with water. Okay, the first processed food was bread, where people were taking the grains from grasses, but you have to know how to do it before you do it. And then basically with water together, and then you can bake it. And then it's basically bread. But you have to know what you do before you do it. The earliest people simply ate what food they could find, either by hunting animals or gathering fruits. Here's also a picture of a fish. Okay, they were hunting animals, and then they were eating these animals, and they were also gathering fruits, which are somewhere. A little question at the side. don't you think they would know at workplaces some fruits were growing? Some fruits they don't just accidentally grow. You gather them. You run for weeks around until you stumble across an olive tree or some type of other fruit. You know that in what regions these plants are growing, and they're growing today there and next year again. Maybe you're not going there and planting new olive trees or other types of I don't know the words of the word, of nuts or whatever. But you know that there is an apple tree, and why should not the people, maybe they were not planting new ones, but they knew in the next year would be a new one there. And these apple trees, you are not traveling for thousands of kilometers until you stumble across one. You know there is one growing, and the next year there are again apples, and again, and again, and again. And you know in what regions what is. So I just had this little idea to gathering and hunting. It sounds a bit like completely wild, just going astray and stumbling across an apple tree. I think the people knew where a hedge of berries was growing, and in the next year it would have again berries. So they were not completely loosely gathering. They were not agriculturing doing and planting, but they knew there's an apple tree, and the next year there's another apple tree. That is my assumption. Whatever. That was the history part. If you were here for history, you can go directly to the next part of history, where we're going to go over it again, and we try to prepare a little presentation about some of these foods, and in a little presentation where we say some little overview of these foods. We will know almost all of the Mediterranean region, but about these foods, what people ate in the last 10, 15,000 years in the Mediterranean Sea, a little overview of some foods. But for now, so if you were here for that, you can go directly to the next video. If you stay here and participate in the shoulder impingement training, then it's better to on risk. We're having a good and stable stance, and we're doing shoulder circles. We're going back with the shoulders up and front and down and back and back, up, front and down, down, front, up, back and down. And now long arms with strong fists, and go as far back with the shoulders as you can. High up, down, front, down, back, up, and front, and down. And now, high up, back, down, front, up, back, and down. Now, legs wide apart. No. Shoulder width wide apart. Long arms with strong fists. Bring the shoulders down and together. Now, turn the arms to the inside. So, shoulders down into the rib cage with the shoulder blades, and together with the shoulders. And the arms to the inside. Arms to the outside. Shoulders down and together. Arms together. Shoulders down and together. To the outside. Shoulders down together. Next exercise. Arms to the side, again the fists, a bit in front. Bring the arms in front, shoulders down and together. Now the arms back, shoulders up and front. In front of arms and back with the shoulders together. And arms with the back with the arms, shoulders up and in front. And release. Now lift the arms up, shrug, shoulders up and or down. If this or any other exercise causes pain, then don't do it. Arms up, shoulders up and or down. One more time. Arms up, shoulders up and or down. Arms together, down and to the outside. Now the sunlight. You can use a sock or something else. Have it with a long arm at the outside. Let it fall down and try to catch it again. And on the other side. Let it fall down and try to catch it. And now stretching. One arm in front. Shoulders back, down. Pull the arm in, have flat fingers. Try to relax the arm and go a bit back with the shoulder and turn the palm up to the sky. So back with the shoulder down, pull the arm and flat fingers. Other arm. So arm in front, the shoulder is back and down, pull the arm in, have fat fingers, try to relax the arm, go with back with the shoulder, and turn the palm up to the sky. That was the short Impingement training. I thank you very much, and until next time.